All right, guys, looks like we're live. I actually was not sure if this was going to work because my phone is mostly obsolete. And it's the morning of Tuesday. So I'm out here in the shop getting ready to forge a batch of hammers. And I am curious if anybody's even going to be here because did not announce it or anything like that. So I've got a batch of billets here, two different sized hammers, and we're gonna start forging some hammers. So I'm gonna put this somewhere, hopefully that will actually work to view this. See how this goes. We have 3 people. I don't even have all the lights on yet. So let me do that. Forging hammers, that's what we're doing today. I have 2 different sizes here. I've got this billet and this billet. You can see the different sizes here. So we're going for a 4.5 pound hammer and a 3.5 pound hammer. That's the goal here. So 9 people. That's awesome. I've tried to do lives off of my phone in the past and my phone did not cooperate. But I think it was the old YouTube, what's it called? The old YouTube app. And so now that that's updated, it seems to be working. All right, let me get the forge going here. Bring you guys over here. It's for those of us in West Texas. It's early. I just lost my some of my forge door there. That's not good. So we're going to be running the Whisper Daddy forge today, big 3 burner. Let that start warming up here. And we're working with 2-inch round 1045 stock for these hammers here. They're going to look something like this right here. This is the latest iteration of the forging hammers, and I'm liking the way it's looking. This is a 3 3/4 pound hammer. In the past, I have in the past I've done pre-orders and I've had people put in a pre-order and get the hammer weight that they wanted specifically. See how far I can go over here into the shop without losing the signal here. This metal building doesn't allow for a lot of what's the word, morning Dustin, morning Duck Rabbit, Ohio and Pennsylvania. How's the weather over in those places? All right, so what was I saying? I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, in the past we've done pre-orders. Hey Luke. In Alaska, up there working on stuff. Rainy and chilly. All right. Well, we've got sunshine. It's chilly here for us. It's chilly, 40 degrees. I don't know, something like that. Of course, if you're in Alaska, you're laughing at that. But when you acclimate to over 100, then your temperature thing just kind of gets all messed up. In the past, I've done pre-orders for the hammers and specific weights. This time, partly because I'm trying to get these ready for before Christmas. I'm just going to keep it real simple, and we're doing 2 different weights on this run. So I'm going to have 5 of each, and yeah, so there's going to be 5 3.5 pounders and 5 4.5 pounders, assuming I don't scrap any, which is always a possibility. But I think we've got it down pretty good to where we shouldn't be scrapping anything, hopefully. We've got Sweden, Magnus in Sweden, Russ, Fort Stockton, A. Terry, Minnesota, Australia, Darcy's in Australia, Shake's Forge, where y'all at there? New Jersey. Did I say that right? Probably not. butcher any more accents here. All right, so got the forge heating up. I'm gonna start putting billets in here. The first thing we have to do with these is shorten them and then square them up. So I actually did not plan this well at all, and so I'm not sure how I'm gonna put billets in the forge and keep you guys right here. So we'll just have to wing it here. Put 3 billets in at a time. I'm gonna crank up the PSI to about 7.5 here. That's what I've got here. Somewhere in that neighborhood. All right, so heating that up. Take a drink of coffee. My special mug here helps me feel good about myself. That was a joke. Thanks, Dustin. Yeah, Little Giant is from well, I called Dave at Little Giant, and if I remember correctly, it's 1927 is the make on this particular one. If you have a Little Giant, you can contact the guys at Little Giant. They don't make hammers anymore, but they have all the records from the original company and where the machines went, obviously when they were made, all based on the serial number and stuff like that. All right, well, let's, okay, I gotta switch out my dies here. These are flattening dies, but they're kind of chewed up. I use them for just all kinds of open die applications, including stamping the logo on forged products, most of the forged products. So I'm not going to use them for working on our billets because it's going to leave marks that we don't want. So these flattening dies are less beat up. And we'll go with those. So while we're waiting for the billets to heat up, I haven't done a live stream in forever. And like I said, partly because I'm not super technologically, I don't know, I have a love-hate relationship with technology. I like old technology. Like, you know, this is cool. But anyway, couldn't figure out how to get my phone to do a live stream for a while, and I just didn't really mess with it. But all that to say, now that we're on the live stream here, and we're waiting for billets to heat up, shoot some questions out there, and I'll make something up if I don't know the answer while we're waiting for these billets. So I'm actually trying to do a video on this process here, forging the hammers as well, and we'll see how that goes with doing a live stream simultaneously. I don't know, maybe I'll just save one at the end. Oh, I do actually have 2 extra billets in the 3.5 pound size for the finished weight of 3.5 pound. And my plan with those is to do a special diagonal peen hammer. I've done diagonal peen hammers before, but it's gonna just be a regular face on one side and a diagonal peen on the other, which is going to allow for easy, let's say this is your stock, this is about the angle that you'd be holding it at, 45, and you'll be able to hammer at a 45 and draw stock out widthwise with that diagonal peen. So that should be pretty cool. All right, well, let's see if you guys have some questions here. Justin says he has a 50 pound. Yep, this is a 50 pound. I've seen the biggest Little Giants that I'm aware of are 250 pounds, and that would be fun to run. All right, guys, let's check on the billets here. Show you what we've got here on the billets. They're still definitely not heated up yet. So we're going to be waiting on that for a minute. Got my Christmas lights up here. All right. Duck Rabbit Foraging asks if I've ever made a slip joint folder before. I have not yet. It's something I've been wanting to do for quite a while. What kind of tolerances do you need for it to work good? Based on my machining experience in the past, when I used to do that for work, I would guess at 2 to 5,000, something like that. You're going to need some pretty decent tolerances for it to be tight and smooth at the same time, without flopping around. That's just me guessing because I haven't built one yet. Tinkerist asks, how's the shirt? Well, I haven't burnt anything. I think this was an old burn hole. I don't know if it was or not. That's just the nature, you get around hot stuff and your shirt can catch on fire. Let's see here. Luke, have you ever used a fly press? I have not, but I have a friend also who is named Luke who has, and I think they have a use for sure. You can get them in different sizes. You're still doing the work, but it's a machine that makes the work a lot more effective and efficient. But I think you can get different tooling and different punches and things like that for a fly press that allow you to do a lot of different things. Shakes Forge, the process of heat treating and tempering hammers, there's different ways to do it. Some guys will just do the faces of the hammer, which you kind of have to have a torch set up for that. I fully heat treat them. This is 1045 steel, which requires a water quench, and the reason you use 1045 steel, well, I mean, you could use anything you want, I guess, but anytime you have a medium carbon steel, you've got, how can I explain this? Essentially, you don't have enough carbon to go around, so to speak. So even if you have a fully hardened piece of steel in the 1045, you still got more ferrite than you do cementite, which is the hard steel, or in the composition. That means it's going to be tougher. And then of course you also temper the steel back, and then you have a nice tough piece of steel. That's a simplified explanation. But anyway. All right. Excuse me. John says 45 degrees is less of a step to change. Yeah, they're handy. 45 degree diagonal peen hammer. MDVS, just getting into forging. Have a forge, anvil, and grinder. What do you think the next investment should be? Let me think about that for a minute. Well, it probably depends on what you are trying to make. Honestly, I would, if you're just getting into it, I would start building stuff, and that question is going to answer itself pretty quickly, I think. Once you start getting into whether you're doing knives or ornamental or tools or whatever, you're going to figure out, oh, I could really use this tool or that tool and be more efficient, etc. So if you're just getting into it, just start making stuff. I would suggest, and you'll figure it out. Nathan, first time joining the live streams, appreciate it. Welcome. Haven't done a live stream in a long time, so you got in on one. That's good here. Duck rabbit, a lot of tongs, or a crap ton of tongs, and two good hammers. Yeah, tongs are definitely something that it seems you can never have enough of. But again, you know, if you're focused on using dimensional mild steel versus blade steel, and I don't know what you're making for sure, so that's gonna determine kind of what you buy for tongs too. So drill press or good vise? Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. A good vise is definitely a must-have. Rob, Spokane, Washington. That's my old neck of the woods in that general region. All right, did I miss anybody's questions? Luke says, just got 6-ton fly press, started making some tooling, punches, drawing knives. Gotta find a good punch lube. I wish I used Atlantic 33 instead of H13. Yeah, I haven't used Atlantic 33. What I use is H13, so I don't know the difference. I think I guess Atlantic 33 might be a little easier to forge. I don't know. I really don't know. There's different punch lubes out there, and all I use still is beeswax and graphite. I just melt the beeswax and buy graphite powder. Mix it in until it's very saturated, and that's what I use. There's other options out there, but I've never used them, so. Steven asked where I get my different handle materials for my knives. Multiple places. I get a lot of handle wood from bellforestproducts.com. They have a lot of just natural wood. I get a lot of ironwood from, I think it's called bestironwood.com, and then there's Arizona Ironwood, which they have some fancier stuff. I get a lot of micarta or, phenolics from Alpha Knife Supply. Excuse me, fighting a cold here. Let's see what else. And then I've bought multiple times of, elk antler sheds just off of eBay, things like that. So that's kind of a variety. Morning, Brett. Scott, what part of Texas you're in? We're about, we're in the Lubbock region, over on the west side of Texas. Lucas, I think cooling gauge 13 with water is okay, like 1500 degrees. I don't think I've done that. I don't think I've tried that. I cool it in water all the time, but I don't think it gets that hot, so I would be careful with that. I don't know. Probably wouldn't try that personally. Might crack. Telebavin, I don't know if I said that right, probably not. Rohan, howdy. William from Southwest Georgia. All right, let's check on our billets here. See what we got going on. All right, I don't know if you can see that. They're heating up. They're still not hot. I started with a cold forge, so it's to be expected. You're just not gonna get your heat as quickly. If I started with a hot forge until the billet's in, it'd be not too long, but we're starting from a cold forge. Anyway, when you're working with big chunks of steel, you don't want to forge it at a lower heat. You don't want your stress, any kind of extra stress in there, but also it just doesn't move. You got to work it a little hotter. So kind of figure that out. Yeah, Atlantic 33. You've probably watched, what's his name? I can't remember his name now. The guy in California. He's a blacksmith. He's on YouTube. My memory's failing me. Is it Brent something? But yeah, Atlantic 33, I guess it doesn't really have enough carbon in it to require, I mean, if you quench it and harden it, as I understand it, you don't have to worry about tempering it. So that's kind of all I know about it. Brent Bailey, that's right. What kind of hammers? Yes, we're forging a rounding hammer, forging hammer. So this is pretty much what they're going to look like. Of course, they're all a little bit different, but it's got your standard hammer face, just sort of flat. You can see that it's not flat, and no good hammer has a flat face because you couldn't use it. And then on the other side, it's got a rounding side, which is much more pronounced. And this is sort of your very common standard. Well, this particular style isn't very standard, I guess, but the flat face, quote unquote flat face, and then the rounding side is very common. And there's a lot of things you can do with this one hammer. So the rounding side gives you a more aggressive die for moving material, and also if you're trying to forge some kind of concave surface. And your flat side is your standard forging hammer, but you can use the edges or the sides of the hammer face for very aggressive material displacement. And so knowing how to use one of these, you've got a lot of different options in just one tool. And again, for those of you who haven't seen these before, what I was trying to do in designing these hammers is an old world, maybe Viking-esque, medieval-ish style, old European sort of style hammer. And so that's what we're doing here. Also, the ergonomics allow for a very close distance between the hammer face and the front of your knuckles when you're holding the hammer. Some people get concerned that you might hit your knuckles on your anvil. I've never had that issue. For one thing, you don't really use your hammer like this, but even if you do, if you have a piece of stock underneath your hammer face, that's already raising it up a little bit. But the thinking behind this is that if you're standing at your, get my belly out of the way, that's just shirt, that's just mostly shirt, okay? All right, if you're standing at your anvil and you're in a relaxed position with your hands hanging to the side, your anvil face surface should come up to the bottom of your knuckles right here if you're standing like so. And that means this is actually a little bit high for me. I must have been wearing different shoes or something, I don't know. So when you drop your hammer blow, the idea is that you're not torquing your wrist in either direction, and you've got a full extension, a natural ergonomic extension of your hand when you're hammering. So if you have a hammer that's got more distance here, then technically you'd have to lower your anvil to maintain the same ergonomics. That makes sense. And so that's the design thinking behind that hammer style. And it does make a difference. Obviously, there's probably a little bit of leeway when it comes to the height. Excuse me. But if your anvil's too high or if it's too low, it's going to really be hard on your joints, your back, everything like that. All right, see you, Rob. See you, Luke. Shakes Forge asks about planishing hammers. I have not made a specific planishing hammer, and I have not used one. I do have different hammers that, depending on what I'm using them for, like if you take your forging hammer and you start beating on a bunch of tooling like chisels or whatever, and those have any hardness to them, you're gonna probably end up dinging up the hammer face a little bit. And this one has a few dings in it. And if you then go forge some steel, you're going to end up with that in your forged piece. So I have different hammers that I use specifically for drifts, things like that. And I try not to do finish forging with them. Yeah, they're for lighter hammers for copper and stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm gonna see if I can set you guys up here. Like I said, I didn't plan this well at all. I just thought I'd try it and see if we could get a live stream going, because I was thinking about doing that, and here we are. Well, I'm gonna attach my phone to the tripod, and we're gonna start forging on these billets here. Well, I don't know that. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see anything if I leave you right there. So let me get this set up here. This ingenious little idea here. I hope that my internet here is gonna hold up if I move you guys over here. Oh. You're still there? All right, talk to me. Are we good? Are we good? I can't tell if, it says that I don't see any indication that we're no longer live. Okay, we're good, all right. All right, so this is let me move it up a little bit here. No, that's about good right there. Try not to shake it around too much. This is highly professional setup, highly professional. All right, hang tight. I got to put some earplugs in, grab a billet. We're going to squash some steel. Hold on just a second. right, so that's just the first 3. That's the first step of the process, squaring them up most of the way. And now let's go sit on a rack and cool off. So I'll run all the billets through like that, and then I've got a block of steel that's squared up, and then I can punch the eye. So throughout the process, the steel, of course, gets heated up and cooled down. So if there's any grain refinement to be done from that, it's being done, I suppose. So Steve and I have 12 hammers that I'm working on in this batch. And yeah, I appreciate you guys stopping in for the live stream. This is totally impromptu. Sorry about the camera shaking around here. I don't have a, maybe I'll pop it back here a little bit. Excuse me. Fighting the cold. I don't have a, hey Cody. Don't have a professional setup for live streams, so totally impromptu, but glad you guys stopped by here. So yeah, my the messages keep disappearing, so it's kind of hard to. All right, let's move the camera over here a little bit. Can't see anything there. Hold on. Is that better? I was starting a video on forging these hammers, but maybe this is the video. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, that's the second time. That is the second time that I've accidentally closed the the window out here. So sorry about that. Yeah, real time making hammers. So our billet here, this is the last billet. You can still see how hot that is, and you'll see me wearing gloves through this whole process, because once you start working with chunks of steel this big and they're up to forging heat, the heat radiating off of them is pretty hot, pretty good. So it'll burn your hands a little bit. All right, so we're just waiting for the next batch of billets to heat up. And with the forge being up to heat now, that'll go a little faster this time. And, you know, it is what it is, though. It still takes a while for them to heat up. Now, I can't really move this phone around a bunch in the shop, because if I go that way, I'll probably lose connection. So we're kind of stuck to the forging side of the shop. Otherwise, I try to show you some other stuff. I've got another batch of knives that I'm working on. Damascus pattern welded knives. I'll run over and grab a couple here and show you. So these knives are all from the billet that I welded up for the Yakut knife a few videos back. This is all the same billet, and these are all heat treated and ready to grind. The bevel's forged. You know, I've left it decent amount of stock on there, especially since these are 80 CRB2 and the Sawmill 15 and 20. The 80 CRB2, if you're not familiar with it, it likes to decarb more than most steels. So I try to be cognizant of that whenever I'm using it, which mostly I just use it for some pattern welded stuff. Anyway, this is nothing to look at really. But I'm working on these. You'll notice that none of these have any holes in the tang for pins, which is a little bit of a problem. I totally forgot to do that. These are fully heat treated. However, it's not going to be hard to just spot and anneal where I need to put pinholes, but sometimes that happens. But that's something else I've got going on in the shop here. Always in multiple different things. All right, shoot some questions. Talk amongst yourselves. Shoot some questions. I'll come back in a few seconds here and look at them. I'll be right back. Hang tight. Not going. Well, I'm going somewhere, but I'll leave the live stream going. Morning, Justin. I'll be back in a few moments. All right, I'm back. All right, let me see if I can pull up my comments or your guys' comments without closing the window again here. Elias Farmer, something about moving back to Idaho. About that. Well, obviously we did not move back to Idaho this year. And at some point, yes, I'd like to do that. But there's various factors involved and just the same stuff that everybody has to figure out, like cost of real estate and different stuff. So right now we're in a good spot as far as, you know, doing stuff and living and everything. Definitely miss mountains and trees, all that. But I don't know. We're just trying to be sensitive to you know what God has, and yeah, I know everything has a purpose, and you know, like Scripture says, everything works together for good for those that love Him are called according to His plan, His purpose. And so, you know, sometimes what I want isn't necessarily the best thing at that time for whatever reason. And so, yeah, I'd like to move back to Idaho at some point. But for now, we're in Texas, and you know, learning and growing and being patient, I guess. So that's the story there. Sorry that every time I look at the comments here, the camera or the phone shakes around. It's because it's kind of on a hokey setup here. Steven, what kind of hammers are you making? They are blacksmithing or forging hammers, rounding hammers, named for the fact that they have a rounding side and a regular face as well. Just an all-purpose forging hammer. That is what we're forging. 1045 medium carbon steel. I'll show you something else I'm working on here. How many of you remember the Puco project that I started like almost a year ago? The little pattern welded Damascus Pucos. Well, I'm still working on them. Let me show you. So here's one. I've got the bolster material fit up, and yeah, it doesn't really look like a Puco. It's more of a clip blade, although there is some Scandinavian versions of clip blades, but the project kind of did morph as it went, but I still have 12 knives I'm working on here, and that you can't see it obviously, but it's a twist pattern Damascus steel. It's not etched yet, but they'll be cool. Still working on them, getting closer. It's something like I have to finish the project. Not doing it is it's like a mental booger, you know. You like, I gotta finish that. I gotta finish that, and you don't do it, and you do other stuff because there's always something else that needs done. And you always have that in the back of your mind. That'll drive you crazy. So I'm finishing them slowly. Brett asked if my press is homemade. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's a H-frame style press, closely modeled after the one that you would find in the book by, I'm going to forget his name. Help me out, guys. Who wrote the book on the forging press? Dr. James Batson. Now, if you want to build a forging press, I definitely recommend getting, let's see if I can get you guys up a little higher here. I feel like I'm staring down at the phone. James Batson, whatever, he wrote a book on building a forging press, that H-frame style, and that book is not, it's not like flat out blueprints where you just do exactly what the book tells you, but it does have a lot of useful and important engineering information so that you don't build something that blows up or snaps in half, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's, aside from the 2x72 grinders, that is the most important piece of powered equipment in my shop. I could do everything that I do currently with that. The little giant power hammer is a nice addition, but it far and away is not as important as the press at this point. Now, if I had a big hammer, like a big hammer, then you could do that, use that instead. But yes, it's homemade. Let me go check on the billets here. MC Rich says, I know this. You know about mental boogers? Yeah, sorry not to be crude or anything, but it's a fact. All right, hold on. Okay, so yeah, our billets are pretty much ready, so I'm gonna move you guys back over here a little bit. Excuse me. Told you it wouldn't take as long this time. I don't know if there's really a good. All right, let me just figure this out here. Hold on. All right, put you next to the flywheel on the Little Giant. You should be able to see what's going on. Let's squish some more steel. we have one more of the smaller billets, and then 5 of the larger billets to work on to square up. Stanley asked if I could use a plasma cutter for my tangles. No, I don't have one, but also what I'll do, and something I've done lots of times before, is just using the torch tip. It's an acetylene torch. I use propane on it, but same thing, essentially. And I'll just spot anneal. On this steel, all you have to do is bring it up to a dull red for, I don't know, 5-10 seconds. And with a small tip on the torch, you can keep that heat pretty localized. You could, a little budget Bob, you could, you could soften the whole tang. I'm not going to soften the whole tangles, but that'll allow me to drill a hole easily. It's called spheroidizing, and you're heating the steel up to, well, around 1400 degrees, but below austenitizing. Yeah, the beard. So I'm still able to use the face respirator with a short beard. It's working. Also, shaved the beard completely off using that respirator, which I didn't have any concerns or questions about. It's fully functional. This is probably just me and my OCD. So I don't know, but I was able to. You could still smell stuff like through the respirator, which I'm sure is normal, but it was kind of freaking me out. So I probably just have OCD or something. Anyway, still using the face respirator. My wife told me I needed to grow my beard back. I told her, well, it's growing back. I don't know. Have to protect the lungs, but we'll see what happens. It's yeah, I figured that out. Yeah, smelling the grinding stuff through it is I don't know. I just with that hood respirator, the PAPR setup. I don't know if you guys watched video where I talked about it. There was one point where I didn't have the filter housing snapped on the right way, and it was sucking particulate into it, and so now that's inside the unit. I've cleaned it out as best I can, but it's not fun. I don't know. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just doing stuff. Anyway, so we're forging hammer billets, and I should probably be hand sanding. If I wasn't talking to you guys, I'd be hand sanding. And I don't think I can. I don't know. We could try. I can take the phone over and see if I can maintain a signal or whatever. So if I cut out, let me know if it disappears. Because over here is where I'm still hand sanding on these little Pucos. This is the last one to get up to, no wait. I don't know. I'm still hand sanding, okay? This is 220 grit. I've got to take it up to 500 next. So how are we doing? Do we still have a signal? Is the technology working? Hey Eric, Got some hand setting as well. Yes. Okay, we're good. Still have a signal. Luke, what? So you make an axe or hatchet weld in the bit? Yeah, that's something I need to do. So one of the things I'm fixing to build yet another forge because I need a forge that can weld stainless, and also with the axe, like you're saying there, Luke. You're talking about using a mild steel body and then forge welding in a carbon steel insert, which is forged out to the bit. The higher carbon steel forge welds at a lower temperature. And so your run-of-the-mill Venturi burner forges, like what I'm running right now, and what you see me using all the time, those pretty easily achieve a, so yeah, I'm working on this little guy. I can't get you, well, let me lower this down a little bit here. Handstanding, yay. And I'm fighting the cold. If you guys haven't heard me say that yet, sorry, I'm fighting the cold. Your typical Venturi burner forges will get up to a certain temperature, and that's fine for forge welding high carbon steel. And I've also successfully forge welded high carbon steel to mild steel plenty of times. But as far as the stainless steel, forge welding that to high carbon steel, you've got to get a temperature that is just on the edge and sometimes out of reach of this style of forge. And trying to run something just on the edge is kind of a pain because you're not sure if you're quite there. So anyway, I need a forge that can easily reach those temperatures without, you know, having to try so hard, and that would be a forced air forge. So I've been doing a bunch of research and looking at a bunch of different options, and I think I've dialed in what I want to do. All that to say, that kind of forge would make it easier to forge weld in a bit. And Luke, you said you're using 4140 and 80 Sierra 2, which, excuse me, that's gonna be easier to forge weld. A little easier, without as high a temperature. But I would want to do that with a mild steel body and a carbon steel bit. Personally, that's just me. So keep having to check the all right, well, here's something fun. Yeah, Eric, I think I'm gonna go with a just a single burner instead of a ribbon, because I don't really want or need a big forge box. I just need the temperature, and a lot of guys, you know, your 1.5, 2-inch pipe coming into the forge, coming off of a 2-inch or 2.5-inch feed, that gives you, you know, good temperatures in your interior of your forge. Hold on here. I can't read the name on that. Thanks for your content. Appreciate it. Please say something inspiring to motivate my friend Shamil to start streaming his forging. Well, I would say that everybody has something to offer because we all do things a little bit differently, and you know, we're all learning. We're all learning constantly. Well, if you're not, then I don't know what you're doing. But so I've been forging for a while, but I watch people who have probably been forging for less time than I have, or building stuff, and I learn things. So yeah, if you get on there and contribute, it's a benefit to everybody. So hopefully that's inspiring. So yeah, stream your stuff or do videos. It also helps. I think it also helps you out too, because you have to, in some ways, pay attention to what you're doing, maybe in a manner that you wouldn't otherwise. I don't know. So I've got some steel here from New Jersey Steel Baron, of course. If I can get it out. So this is all 1075. It's for making pattern welded, and I don't typically use 1075 for much of anything, except if I'm going to do some special projects. And this is actually a special project for a buddy of mine. I'm making some pattern welded for him. He's doing a special axe project, like kind of an arc piece, I guess. And then whatever I have left over, I'm going to keep for sand my or cladding for like 5200 edge steel, that kind of thing. So that works really great for that. And of course you can make a blade out of it all by itself, but I typically don't do that. Now this is 125 CR1, which is going to be fun. Never used this steel before, and it is something that should be really interesting. No, I'm not giving up on 5200. That's still my flagship steel, if you want to call it that, because of the performance, workability, availability, and affordability. Those are the 4 reasons why I chose 5200 steel. However, I do use some other steels. If I'm doing a big chopper, something that's going to take a lot of impact, I'll typically go with 80 CRB2 or 5160. And that steel that I just showed you, the 125 CR1, is a steel that is going to have an additional edge retention capability beyond even 52100. And kitchen knives, or just knives that are not going to be subject to torquing or, you know, impact, but you want an especially high level of edge retention within the carbon steel family. And so 125 CR1, it's got 1.25% carbon, which is 0.25% more than 5200, and it's also got some chromium in it. I think it's about 0.5% chromium, which is going to help a little bit with the grain structure and a little bit with the hardenability. It's not a deep hardening steel, but anyway, I'm looking forward to playing with that a little bit and making some kitchen knives. But let me check on the billets here. I think we're about good to squish some more steel. Let me see if I can. I don't know if I can get you guys over here without getting my tripod in the way. Let me try. See what I can do here. It's kind of hard to reach around this a little bit. All right. So do I still have a signal here? Looks like I do. Maybe. John from Newfoundland. So now, let's see, I'm reading the comments here. Luke says, you start with mild steel, people want hardened poles. Yeah, that's why I just do the single piece of carbon steel. But that's the thing is like I want my edge to have edge holding capability, but it also needs to be tough. Thanks, Luke. I appreciate it. All right, let me grab some steel and we'll squish some more steel here. All right. Okay, I just put the last 3 billets in the forge. So, making progress. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Abel asks, what's the difference about pressing and hammering the iron? See ya, Tinkerist. Appreciate it. Jason Knight is your mentor. Yeah, he's an accomplished bladesmith. Yeah, Luke, I'll probably do more live streams now that I know that I can actually do it on the phone here. Difference between pressing and hammering iron or steel. Ultimately, well, I guess, are you asking that as far as like the effect on the steel or the ease of process? That's what I'm kind of wondering. I mean, ultimately, if you're forging steel at the appropriate temperature, in a way that's appropriate for that cross section of steel, then it's not really much different as far as I know. Say, yeah, effect on steel. What's the effect on the steel? I'm not aware of any. When you're forging steel, you're taking advantage of the loosened bonds within the structure of the steel, and so by putting energy into the steel in the form of heat, you like they're less tightly held together, if you will, and so you can move it around. And if you try to move it around at too low of a heat, you can damage things. But whether you're pressing it or hammering it, now you might, yeah, either way it's going to be, you have to be careful of how you're doing it. So all that to say, I'm not aware of any specific differences between forging or pressing or hammering the steel when you're forging it. When you're hammering the steel, it's moving it quicker, I guess you could say, in that particular location. And so in some ways, it could affect a locality of the steel in a way that pressing couldn't or wouldn't. But again, if you have a lower temperature on your steel, your pressing it's not going to move, and if you make it move, you know, it can damage it. So now I'm just trying to think of things that could be different, but in practicality, in practice, there isn't any appreciable difference that I'm aware of. John asks, what are my thoughts on quench oil, Parks 50 versus AAA? Well, fortunately, it doesn't have to come down to my thoughts or anybody else's thoughts, because quench oil, your commercial quench oils that you can buy, such as Parks 50 or an equivalent, AAA or an equivalent, they're all designed for specific parameters. So, for example, AAA quench is what you would call a 10-second oil. Excuse me, Parks 50 is like a 7 to 9, I believe. And depending on the type of steel that you're heat treating, you use a specific oil. So I use both AAA and Parks 50 depending on the type of steel that I'm using. And so that's really what it comes down to. You have to pair it up with an appropriate, your steel with an appropriate quenchant. So for example, if if you forge a blade or make a blade out of 1095 high carbon steel and you go quench it in AAA or some other equivalent 10-second, 11-second, 20-second oil, simply by the science of it, you won't get a fully hardened blade because that particular steel, 1095 high carbon steel, requires a certain time, a certain speed of quenching to reach full hardness. And that's simply based on the chemistry of the steel and how quickly it needs to be cooled to achieve full hardness, full potential hardness. And that's why, you know, everybody uses Sparks 50 for their 1085, their 1080, 1075, 1084. Those are great examples of steels that require a very fast quench. In fact, you could even say that you really need to quench it in water to get full hardness, but Sparks 50 is the next best thing, and it's a lot easier on the steel. So I don't know if too many people quench steel in water. AAA, I use that for, that you're going to use that for your deeper hardening steels like 5160, 5200, which is sort of a borderline deep hardening steel, 01. So all that to say, you have to pair up your steel with your quenchant, and that will determine what you use. So it's a great question. It's a very good question because that is when it comes to getting started in knife making for cheap, for a little bit of money, that is probably the biggest question that, like, because when I think about it, you can build a knife with a hacksaw file and a MAP gas torch. Like, you get a piece of 1080 steel and some sandpaper, right? You can build a good knife with that, out of that steel, for what that steel is. But where you run into a problem right away is when you go to heat treat that knife, there are no super inexpensive quench it options out there. So what you see a lot of guys doing is using canola oil, which is approximately equivalent to your AAA in a 10-second oil, but it does not hold up. It's a different type of oil. It doesn't hold up. It's not going to give you the same performance over a period of time. But if you use it once or twice, it's approximately equivalent to your 10-second oils. But you can't use a 10-second oil for 1080 steel and get a full hardness. So that means you'd have to use something like 5160, which would be fine. And that would probably be better, but I wouldn't want to heat treat 5160 with a torch. I'd rather have the ability to get a hold time on it because of the temperature required. Anyway, I don't know, I'm getting nitpicky, but the next best thing is that you can get like a gallon of quench oil from different places online. And that'd probably be the next best thing if you're looking for an inexpensive alternative. I don't quench it only a gallon, but if you're just doing one knife, you can get away with it, I think. If you're doing multiple knives, you really need to have more quenchant so that it absorbs the heat. Now I'm getting off on a rabbit trail. Started talking about heat treating and stuff. Hey Austin, how's it going up there in the frozen north? Mountain Man Steel, that's the guy that I'm, that 1075 I showed you, I'm going to be making a giant billet for him on one of his mad scientist projects or whatever. Abel asks, how many are there for Damascus steel art powder? What are they? How many are there? I don't. What are you asking? How many are what? Sorry, I don't understand. If you can clarify that question, I'll try to answer it for you. Oh, raining. Oh, yay. John says, speaking of going to a salt bath. Well, I haven't used one yet. Are you talking about for oxidizing temperature or tempering? Either way, I don't. I haven't looked into it, but the cost is obviously going to. Well, I think it's pretty obviously going to be more than. Well, if you go to heat up for oxidizing temperature and for tempering, you're probably looking at an investment that's more than just buying a kiln and quenching in oil, $4,000. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing a bunch of knives, or if you're trying to get a very specialized stuff like getting into mar quenching and mar tempering, all this kind of stuff, or creating bainite in your finished steel, then yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'd be fun to play with. I wouldn't mind doing that, but I can't really justify it right now. Maybe never will be able to. But yeah, the salt baths, there's some definite advantages. If you're oxidizing in a salt bath, you don't have to worry about decarb or oxidization because it's enclosed in molten salt, so you don't have to worry about that. That would be fun. It's a very steady, stable temperature because you've got this mass of molten salts that's holding that temperature, so that's great. And then as far as the tempering goes, you can quench, and I think it's mar tempering or mar quenching. Anyway, you can quench in a molten salt so that you bring that temperature down before the in front of the perlite nose, and then you hold it there. So that'd be great for that. And you're not gonna, whether you're trying to create bainite or you're trying to make sure your blades don't ever crack, which either one is great. That would be fun. So yeah, it would be cool. But yeah, justifying the cost, I don't know. Let's see. Powdered, what is there? Powder that you pour when you make the canister Damascus pattern welded steel. There's a lot of different steel powders. I'm aware of, your 1080, 1084, 1095. You can get nickel powder. There's others, I'm sure, but those are the ones I'm familiar with. And so there's a number of them, and they're just steel in a powdered form. I think some of the origins of that is for an abrasive in like bead blasting or sandblasting. I don't know. It's very fine though. All right, I better check on our billets here and see what's going on here. Not quite up to heat yet. John says he's looking at an air blast furnace. You're talking about like a forced air forge. Yeah, I need me one of them. I want to be able to weld. I want to be able to weld stainless high carbon steel sandmai. That's the biggest reason. And of course, they're going to be more efficient than a Venturi style burner. All right, so this is the first billet we squished, and the next step of the process here, once we finish squaring up the last three billets here, still pretty warm, is to punch the eye. and I've got a punch on my press, and that's followed by a few drifts, and then I'll be putting on the rounding side of the hammer, cleaning up the main face of the hammer, and I'm going to do that before heat treating because I don't want any layer of decarb. Well, that's not the main reason. Sorry, I misspoke there. What I want to do is be as close to the finished surface when I heat treat, because this is not a deep hardening steel. Obviously, 1045, quench it in water, it's still not going to be hardened all the way through. And that's not a bad thing in this case at all, because a hammer needs to be able to be shock resistant. So it's only going to be hardened some amount into the surface of the steel. This is a little warm, I'm going to put it down. But I do want the target hardness on that face of the hammer. I don't want to have to heat treat and then grind back a certain amount to clean it up and then risk getting out of my hardened range on that face of that hammer. I want that to be the hardness that it's supposed to be. So there's that. Yeah, Eric, you need to get one of them hammers. Yeah, I'm making some right now, which obviously you're aware of. 3 1/4. Yeah, so these, the one I was just holding, that's going to be a 3.5 pounder, and I've got some 4.5 pounders. That's what I'm doing this run, just 2 weights. And I don't know the exact weight, so it might be a little bit heavier. But this one right here is actually 3 3/4. I probably mumbled when I said the weight before in previous videos. So the smaller ones should be just a little bit smaller than this one. And I am going to forge out the length a little bit more. I don't want it any, this is plenty short enough here, but Storm of Wrenches, this time I'm just making a batch of hammers and they will be available. I am making 3.5 and 4.5 pounds. So 5 of each, and then I've actually got 2 special ones where I'm going to make a diagonal peen on the back side and a regular hammer face on the front. So there will be a couple of those, and I just want to try that out, see how that goes, and it should be fun. So yeah, I'm just making them for available. I've had multiple people asking for hammers, particularly before Christmas, and so this is before Christmas. So we got to get them done. All right, I think we're ready to squish some more steel here. Okie dokie. That's the last. Let's see if I can show you guys here. Where are we at? There we go. There's all of our billets. So that's the last one right there. Right there. And now I'm going to start heating up for punching. I don't know. I'm not sure if I want to draw this out a little bit more or not. Got to think about that for a second here. So we're going to gain some length. We're going to get a little bit of length when we punch it and drift it and then squish it back flat. I'm going to try it like this and see how it goes here. So you might wonder why I don't just start with the hammers that are already hot and start punching those. And the reason I'm not doing that is because I'm allowing them to go through a heat cycle. So by letting those cool down and then starting on the ones that have already cooled down, they have a full heat cycle where that steel cools down, and whatever beneficial grade structure benefits that you get from that, it's only going to happen if it cools down to a certain point. So if I just kept this hammer in the forging process, kept it hot the whole way through, and then let it cool down at the end, it would not be the same as allowing it to cool down between processes. Now, is there any real benefit to that that you can tell in the finished product? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe. I'm not going to say that it's some kind of highly scientific thing. That's just what I'm doing. Can't hurt, I can tell you that. All right, let's look at the messages here. Okay. Can't really see what I'm doing here. Hold on. Bex Blacksmithing. Would you rank making a hammer as intermediate or advanced? Well, I think it's intermediate, but I also don't think that modern skill levels, I don't think we catalog those the same as they would have 150 years ago. So it might be considered advanced in this day and age. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so the thing about hammers and axes, they seem, and they are, a very simple tool, but building them is not simple. And building a good one is not easy. It's blacksmithing. Bladesmithing is also blacksmithing, but it is, it's a specific genre within blacksmithing, and it's a different set of skills I've found to forge hammers and axes, which is one reason why I have pursued that, because I wanted to have I don't know, I don't think you could really call yourself a blacksmith if you only forge knives. That's a bladesmith. I feel, and this is just me, I am not the authority, but I feel that in order to call myself a blacksmith, I should be able to forge more than just knives. And I really like the idea of the elemental tool. A knife is an elemental tool if you want to use that term, but a hammer is even more so, and perhaps an axe even more so. I enjoy it. I think it's a cool thing. And again, one of my favorite things about doing this job is that at least a lot of the knives that I make, people are using. And so when I make a hammer, I know somebody's going to use that. And I appreciate that. I like that. So, Randy Richard in the shop. Hey, Randy. Recommending the Knife Engineering, but yeah, it's a great book. Yep. Yeah, that book, excuse me. It's a great book. Yeah, I wish I'd have had it earlier, but because the heat treating and the metallurgy is something that I've always been interested in, and there's guys that I've learned a lot from before Dr. Larry Thomas came on the scene. And one of those guys is Kevin Cashin, and he, for a long time, he's been when it comes to real world practical heat treating for bladesmiths and knife makers, combined with metallurgical knowledge, he was the guy that had, in my opinion, the best information. And sometimes those guys don't agree completely on things, which is really interesting to me because there is a lot about the science of metallurgy that we don't know. And there's guys that will act as if these formulas and stuff are like unchangeable. They figured out the best absolute possible way to heat treat a particular steel, and excuse me, they'll have scientific reasons behind it. Excuse me, but there's more we don't know. Okay, there just is. And so, for example, well, I love talking about this stuff. I can talk about it all day, so I better be careful here. Some of the stuff that old bladesmithing traditions have figured out over thousands of years and have had in use for hundreds, if not thousands of years, a lot of that has very good grounding in what we would consider modern metallurgical science. And one example is like the Japanese bladesmithing tradition. A lot of what they do and why they do it, one thing I really appreciate about the Japanese bladesmithing tradition is that it's everything you need and nothing you don't. That's one way I would describe it. The way they do things is for performance and efficiency. And yes, there can be a lot of like tradition, even religion surrounding that. But in general, the way they do things has a purpose behind everything they do. Where was I going with that? Oh, for example, did you know, I'm sure some of you knew that steel can be radioactive. That's not a new concept, right? Okay, but think about that. So this is something that I'm going to study more on. But what is radioactiveness? Like, what is the particle? What is that energy? So when you think about steel, we think about, it's got iron, it's got carbon, it's got alloy components, and then as you learn about the metallurgy and how those interact together. So where's the radiation in there? Because steel, just like anything else, can have radioactivity. In fact, everything does to some degree, right? But where's that in the steel? Like we don't even talk about, like, what is that? Is that a particle? What is that, right? So that's just an example of like we don't know everything about steel. Like just because we've learned how to use these materials to a certain level, you know, and they work well within those parameters, that doesn't mean we know everything about it. And not to get like weird or mystical or anything, because there's a ton of stuff we don't know. Here's one. Oh, you want to get crazy? All right. So my kids love to watch like wild krats. Anybody a wild kratter, for example? And I don't know if it was this show or if it was a different one, but I think it was a different show. But it's just as an example. Eels. You know, eels that live in the water, and were actually a large food source in past ages in Europe and Britain. Eels. Nobody knows how they reproduce or where they do that. They're just out there in the ocean and stuff, and nobody knows where they come from exactly, apparently. So it's just an example of how there's so much that we don't know, and just because we know certain things, we think we know the totality of it. All I'm saying is I'm convinced that there's a lot we don't know about metallurgy. And there's just so many things that are passed around, everybody says and repeats. I've done it. Well, I got to read some stuff here. Thanks, Randy. Appreciate you using the hammer. Thanks, Austin. Yeah, I appreciate making stuff that people use. Thanks, low budget Bob. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, Austin, you still have my DVD. Yeah, y'all get that from me sometime. John says I used to make a lot of hunting general use knives. Now I love making Damascus chef knives. Yeah, that's one thing I like about kitchen knives is that they should get used. Yeah, my battery is running out. You're right. It is. It's down to like 15 or something. So I'm not long for. It's at 14%. I'm not long for this live stream here, guys. Anyway, to finish my little rabbit trail rant, one such example of stuff that we thought we knew and didn't really know. For example, so speaking of Dr. Larry Thomas, on his YouTube channel, Knife Steel Nerds, he recently did some studying on pattern welded Damascus steel edge retention, and it was interesting. So you have to go watch it at Knife Steel Nerds on YouTube here. But one of the things that you'll hear is that if you combine, like, okay, so originally the pattern welded steel that people were making originally, and as far as originally, I mean earlier in around the 1960s, 70s, 80s, is they were using mild steel combined with high carbon steel, and that would give you a pattern. And they were saying that it helped edge retention because of a toothy effect on the edge of the steel. Well, that is not really the general idea or consensus these days, and so the idea of having a soft steel on the edge of your knife is generally not acceptable. And I, for one, have also thought the same thing. Like, no, you want good steel on your blade, on the edge anyway, specifically for the best edge retention. So anyway, Dr. Larry Thomas, he was doing this. He had some, I believe it was 5200, or maybe, no, I think it was 1095 high carbon steel and nickel. So layers of that. So nickel is soft, it doesn't hold an edge, right? And that's in this pattern welded steel as part of the actual edge. And he found in his little study that it had a benefit to the edge retention. Not that it made it work better than just a straight mono steel blade, but it did in fact allow for longer edge life because of that toothy effect. Anyway, you'll have to go watch the video. I'm butchering it, I'm sure. But the point is that he was surprised. Here's my point. He was surprised to find that there was, in fact, a benefit or a positive effect in this case with this nickel and high carbon steel pattern welded Damascus, because that's not the consensus in general these days. So my point is, there's a lot we don't know. That's all I'm saying. You guys probably didn't want to hear all that. All right, well, listen, I'm still working on these hammers, and I've got to start punching, but I have to charge my phone, and it's been fun, and I should probably get back to work some more here. I'm going to have to charge my phone up. I might bring you guys back here for the next little stage here, but I appreciate all of you being on here. This was totally impromptu. I didn't know if anybody showed up or not, but we actually had a little bit of turnout, so I totally appreciate that, guys. And we squished some steel, started some billets here, but I got to go charge my phone, and I got to keep working here. Probably get another cup of coffee. And y'all have a great day. I'll try to bring you back maybe a little bit later, but if not, I'll see you on the next one. And yeah, we'll have to do a live stream a little more often now that I've figured out that it's possible. So anyway, appreciate you guys watching. As always, we'll see you on the next video. Stay warm or cool or whatever out there. So appreciate it. See you on the next one.